Yes.
I think it's going to be time to go. So, ladies and gentlemen, dear community of the Paper Jam Club, dear members, dear guests, dear partners, good evening and welcome to this webinar, Post-Confinement and Telework, How to Choose Your Video Conferencing Service, in partnership with Orange and HighFive. Let me introduce myself. I'm Julian Delpy, the director of the Paper Jam Club, and I have the pleasure of being your moderator today. You discovered it some time ago. We've launched a digital offer with webinars on a weekly basis. And today, we invite you to discover a new platform. For the very first time, we're going to be on HighFive today. So this is why it changes a bit from your habits, but we're really thrilled to be here with you today. So welcome everyone. You can see you have a chat. You can say hi directly if you want to. And I explained a bit more how it works afterwards, especially when you're going to have the Q&A session, because this platform allows you to appear on stage and to ask your question directly. So you don't have to type anymore. You can be with us and join the conversation. But before this Q&A session, we'll present you a bit more about this tool. The health crisis has accelerated the adoption of communication systems with more than 900 million meetings a day now on those tools and platforms. They've become a commonplace very quickly. But how do you choose your platform? What are the criteria? Today, we have the luck to welcome the HighFive team to dig in your solution. And actually, we even have their CEO, so he can explain us the whole team and how the things have been going in the last month, probably hectic. So it's time for me to welcome Joe Manuele.
Bonjour, Joe. Bonjour, bonjour. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for hosting us today. And it's a real honor and a pleasure for us to be having your webinar on the HighFive platform today. Thank you.
I'll be right back with you afterwards. I just want to go across the whole team to present you everyone who's going to be with us today. We also have Gijs Wakes. Good evening, Gijs.
Good evening. Great to meet with you all. Looking forward to presenting to you today. I'm presenting out of our London office, and I'm responsible for HighFive here in EMEA.
We have Dan O'Connell from Dialpad, because we have an announcement to make today, I guess.
We do. We have a big announcement and things to talk about, and pleasure to meet everybody and see everybody, and looking forward to sharing more.
And so that they're remotely from UK and the US, and we also have local persons, not just myself. We are glad to welcome as well the Orange team. So we have Jean-Sébastien Berneron from the B2B Sales Management. Good evening, Jean-Sébastien.
Hi, good evening. Hi, everybody. Thanks to joining this webinar, and we are going to explain with Delphine our case related to Orange and our relationship with HighFive.
Yes, and I was about to say, last but not least, we'll welcome Delphine Gilbert, HR Manager, Orange Luxembourg. Good evening, Delphine.
Hello, everybody. I'll be happy to share with you our experience in Orange.
Great. I think it's time to start. I think, Joe, it's your turn to start to tell us a bit more about HighFive and where it comes from, and give us some instructions.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for everyone to participate on this lovely Monday. I'm coming to you from Half Moon Bay, California, which is just south of San Francisco. And in case you're wondering, if you've seen the news, the state is in, it's as bad as it looks. There's a lot of smoke and fog covering the area, but thankfully we're all safe and trying to get through it. So 2020 has been the gift that keeps on giving, if you will. So I'm going to ask Jim to start sharing the presentation that we'll be talking about today. And what we're going to discuss is a little bit about, if you take a look at, go to the first slide, some amazing statistics. Obviously, we see this across all the different global theaters. A great stat that basically confirms what we all know: 88% of businesses, of all businesses in the EU, have actually shifted to some form of working from home. So remote working or working from the home office. That's an incredible number. Like, if you think about this, 88%. Now, when we talk about this from a pure business perspective, it goes way beyond just the B2B type organizations. Every single business has to rethink how they operate. Think of the small restaurant, the small bistro, who has to shift away from having people coming into their offices, going into their restaurants and eating on an outdoor patio. Having to adapt and having to, move to takeout, for example. Think of schools. My daughter is 10 years old. She's still doing distance learning. If all goes well, she should be going back to school next week. But it's going to be something like, 50% distance learning and 50% working from her school herself, which obviously affects the way families operate, and the whole way we think of work has been completely redefined. And so because of that, we basically look at it as, I've seen everything from 3 to 5 years of digital disruption being brought into a very short period of time. In fact, in a matter of weeks. If we go to the next slide, we'll give you a little bit of experiences that we've seen here at HighFive. On this fine day, I think it was in March 12th or 13th, when COVID hit, Silicon Valley saw this huge shift where businesses were all allowed to go work from home and to work remotely. And so if you think of Facebook, Google, even up in Amazon, Microsoft, the largest tech companies in the Bay Area, Intel, Cisco, all of our peers, my good friends at Zoom, everyone sent their employees home, and we basically did the same thing. It was around that time frame, that week of that second week of March, and within that week, we saw this huge spike, almost 300% shift in traffic overnight. For HighFive, one of the biggest things for us was most people use HighFive originally to enable rooms, and where we had a great desktop experience as well. So in a typical day in the HighFive office, every single one of our conference rooms was equipped with HighFive video conferencing equipment, and we would have anywhere between 5 to 20 people attend a meeting in a conference room. Now, if you think about that, overnight, we sent everybody home. There's 20 people now doing a video call instead of having them use 3 or 4 conference rooms. So there's two things that happened. The first thing is the face-to-face meetings that we were having, the going for lunch, the going for a coffee, catching up with our colleagues, and hosting our customers coming into our offices. All of those offices moved virtually. And I heard Jean-Sébastien speaking earlier, and he's going to be talking about his own experience. But it's very common to hear people say they're spending 8 to 10 hours a day now on video conferencing. So we saw this huge shift in online working from home, or working remotely, if you will, mostly from home, which has actually put an incredible stress on our last mile. So this is why partnering with companies like Orange makes so much sense. Orange owns the network infrastructure. The network really matters. This is something that we've really discovered. And with partnerships with companies like Orange, we're able to keep the service up and running regardless of the connection that you want to keep. Like, we're only as good as the bandwidth that you have at the end of the day. So a big kudos to Orange for providing that infrastructure. These are the people who are the unsung heroes, if you will, of this shift to working from home. One of the biggest things that we've also seen is the productivity gains that we've gotten. So I remember talking to our head of technology and our co-founder, Jeremy. Jeremy Roy, all of a sudden, overnight, all of his team started working remotely. And about a month in, we had to add some new features that weren't, as important previously, but became very important for COVID. And we were basically doing major releases every 2 weeks, pushing them out through the cloud, through our infrastructure. And Jeremy said to me, Joe, we're never going back to an office. Like, we've never been more productive. And so this is the interesting thing, and it's an interesting debate, but what happens once COVID goes away, we find a vaccine, and we start opening things up again? There is going to be a large cohort of people who are realizing that this is not that bad. Working from home, having the flexibility of being with our families, not having to spend 3 hours a day in our cars commuting or in public transportation. So the interesting thing is we're going to see some kind of evolution. We're going to go back a little bit to what it was like before, but I highly doubt we're going to go back to anything that to a situation where we were like in the past. Let's go on to the next slide. I want to respect my time. Make sure Julien doesn't get too upset with me. So that if you actually take a look at what's really important for team collaboration as we make this transition over to working collaboratively in an office, face to face, and then all of a sudden, we are now pretty far away from each other, and we need to adapt and adopt new technologies. The very first thing, the technology needs to be easy to use. And simplicity is complex, I always say. At HighFive, from the very beginning, 8 years ago, the vision of our founders was to demystify video conferencing. You should be able to join by clicking on a link. It shouldn't matter what device you're on. It should support mobile platforms, both Android and iOS, as well as desktops, both Mac and Windows-based PCs. And it shouldn't be that difficult to use. Once I click on and I join a meeting, it should be intuitive. So hopefully you appreciate, and for those of you who are new to HighFive, the interface is very clean, it's very simple, the buttons are very intuitive, and we put a lot of thought and a lot of effort, and a lot of engineering effort, quite frankly, for us to be able to do that. The second part is we also recognize that this is one communication tool that you have. We live on Slack. We're big Slack users ourselves. The ability to share files, the ability to connect with other instant messaging platforms is absolutely critical in the way we collaborate. So we talk about multiple devices. I actually have 3 in my office. I have my iPhone, I have my iPad, and I got my MacBook. I actually have a backup laptop. That's a whole different story. I'm seeking help for that. But that being said, if you actually take a little bit of time to understand and appreciate how people work and how people operate, we really want everyone to adapt, as opposed to having everyone adapting to our way and downloading our software. We want to adapt to the way you're used to working. So if you work in Slack and you live in Slack and you're having a chat with a colleague, this is something we do every day at HighFive. We say, hey, you know what? Let's jump on video, because sometimes a text message just isn't enough. I just want to tell you what's going on, and I want to be able to see your facial expression. I want to be able to share that expression. And then, as my name implies, Giuseppe, I'm Italian. I like to use my hands to see if I'm really, really upset. I'm really gonna. You can't capture that in chat, unfortunately. Let's move on to the next slide. And then, so the last thing that I wanted to touch on is if you actually take a look. Going back, ease of use is important. Quality is incredibly important as well. We've partnered with Dolby. Our platform runs on AWS, completely born in the cloud from day one. The audio and the video that we provide is the highest quality that the network allows. WebRTC is actually one of the lowest latency protocols out there. The entire industry is shifting to WebRTC. Including the fastest growing video conferencing company, which I don't need to name, is actually not using WebRTC now, but will have to shift eventually. But Microsoft has adopted it. Google obviously has adopted WebRTC. Dialpad, who you hear a little bit more about, built their entire platform on WebRTC. This allows us to provide the highest quality with the lowest amount of overhead and bandwidth. And you combine that with the power of a low latency, reliable network that Orange provides, it's magic. This is when you can get the highest level of audio and video combined. The ability then to say, hey, I'm going to shift to a conference room, as you see on the bottom right-hand side or on the right side of the slides. as we start going back to work, and I think Europe is a little bit ahead of us. I saw some pictures from friends in Italy, their little kids going back to school in Italy. Italy was very hard hit. It was really, encouraging to see them starting to go back to school, starting to go back to work. Adapting to these hybrid environments where I'm working from home on a computer, but I'm still working from an office. When I go back to an office, those other times, it means half the employees are at work and the other half are at home. Combining a strong video conferencing solution that enables rooms is really critically important. Mobility, of course, is fast growing. There are 7 billion mobile WebRTC-enabled devices out there. It's really critically important for us to work across any device that's out there, and I touched a little bit about that. And then the ability to share your content. So we're sharing our slides here. We have that interaction with the slide, with the chat channel as we start doing larger webinars. We added this feature, the moderated feature, where we can do some to many people, so that everyone joins, but people are automatically muted because you're listening, and then we can promote you to a speaker, so we don't have to ask everyone to mute or turn off their video. These are all things that are critical in what was architected, and that's why we're extremely proud of both the product that we've developed and how COVID has really accelerated and validated the vision of HighFive, quite frankly. And then, of course, the relationship with Orange, the relationship with us to partner with someone who controls the network, who provides mobile devices, who provides that network SLA, to provide the quality of service that we've come to expect. So very, very pleased to be here. I'm going to pass this on to Giles and to Julien if there's any other comments from you. And I'll be available for Q&A later on today. And again, thanks very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Joe, or Giuseppe, if I say the correct name, for this presentation. Yes, and you almost did the good time. It was a bit too long, but it's fine because you were super passionate, and I think we understood where you come from and where you're going to. In fact, it's time to move on to the next two speakers. To understand, concretely, what is HighFive and how it works, because like many users, I'll tell you, okay, but this is something we see in other ones. Can you show us really the technology, how it works, how easy it is to use? That's for you guys.
Super. Thank you, Julian, and thanks, Joe, for that fantastic introduction. As I said earlier, my name is Giles. I'm responsible for the relationship here and the business in EMEA. And I think I'm going to be joined by Jim Recker, our Director of Sales Engineering. And what we wanted to do was just pick out a couple of the differentiators in the marketplace. So given the fact that I'm sure almost all of you will be doing more video calls now than you were 6 months ago, the beauty of being able to do this meeting via HighFive is that it really does actually show the technology in action. Hopefully you found it very easy to, first of all, get onto the meeting. I'm also hoping, and I'm pretty sure because I do likewise 5 to 10 of these a day, that the video quality and audio quality should be extremely good as well. So Jim, if you can just move on to the first slide.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So we're really proud of the move to TV function. And what does this mean? I'm sure some of you might, like I did this morning, start back to school very soon and having kids going back into the school working environment. Case in point, even this morning, I had meetings where I needed to be on a conference call, drop the kids off, and then I was able to use my app to do this. The benefit of that is that you get crystal clear HD audio and video from Dolby. And importantly, it also has noise cancelling features in there so that you don't get the background noise of being in a car, or it could be in a train station when people start to go back to travel. As I got back to my office here, I was able to directly from the app, and you may or may not be able to see this, and hopefully myself and Orange will get a chance to be able to demo this to you. But at the bottom, this integrates with Calendar, whether that's Google or Microsoft or other. And if there's a video button, you have a HighFive meeting involved in and integrated into the calendar. And you click on that to join, and when I get back to my office, I'm able to say move to TV, and it seamlessly moves it to the TV. Now, should I be ejected, as some of us sometimes are from conference rooms, you have the ability then to flip back by the press of a button to the device that you're using. So fantastic use case and one of the real differentiators in the marketplace. Jim, I don't know if you had anything else to add to that before we go on to...
Oh, no, of course I did, because we always run long on these meetings, of course, so the ability to move back to the mobile device or a PC is equally important, because usually there's someone knocking outside of the room trying to get into your conference room. So with just one button, again, you'll just click a button to get back to your mobile device, go out into the hallway, hopefully find another meeting room and move to TV as well. So that's one of the advantages of being able to move to TV and move back to TV just with one button.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jim. You can
the other thing I wanted to also add too, Giles, is that as you mentioned there of integrations, and Giles is quite right. We integrate with a variety of different services out there, and most importantly, integration with the most important things, which is your calendar. So again, just with one touch, going to your calendar, you'll be able to launch a meeting, join a meeting very easily. It is also extremely easy with the add-on to add a HighFive meeting to an Outlook or a Google meeting. For those of you who are not familiar with the logos, I try to make it easier today. The other integrations are equally important. So of course, if you are using Microsoft's Teams and wish to launch a HighFive meeting or schedule a HighFive meeting, that is also possible in Microsoft Teams. We also have integrations with other services such as Slack. We use Slack here at Dialpad, so the ease of use and being able to use that tool to quickly schedule a meeting and join a meeting from Slack is enjoyed by all. And then last but not least, we're going to talk more about this in details, there's the issues of security. And so of course I threw up there SAML 2.0, which is a very important thing to consider when talking about security, enterprise security. And we integrate with other services as well, such as Okta, offering two-factor authentication when using some of these tools. Did I miss anything there, Giles?
No, that's great. Thanks, Jim. And I think we've got quite a cross-section of audience from across Luxembourg today, and I'm sure some more technical, some less technical, and look forward to being able to follow up on those in a deeper dive environment when we get the opportunity. So no, I think we can move on one slide.
So the biggest issue, of course, is, Giles, it's being able to join other services. Tell us a little bit more about what our customers may see in Europe.
Absolutely. So probably you'll recognize a lot of the logos that you see up on the screen there, maybe used some of them or attended meetings with those. We at HighFive are extremely proud of what we term two-way interop. And by that, I mean the ability to be able to run HighFive software on legacy devices or competitive hardware to Dolby and vice versa, so that you can run HighFive software within that environment. And we are really proud of that two-way interop. And in fact, Jean-Sebastien and Delphine will talk a little bit later about the example of the Benelux region, where I think they had something like 6 or 7 different hardware providers, and they were able to get up and running extremely quickly and efficiently, utilizing the final piece of technology that we'll talk about today, up and running the HighFive software on all of those devices, which I think hopefully for those that have worked in this area will know that's extremely impressive, and one that's meant that Orange has chosen to drive with HighFive moving forwards. Jim, I'll maybe hand over to you to finish up with that HighFive Flex piece and also move on to security.
Correct. So I'm going to mention one quick other thing too with this interoperability. That's a big word, but we want you to remember when you leave here today is that we've also made it simple as well, as Joe was talking about earlier with simplicity. And with, again, one button, you're able from a HighFive room, for example, join a third-party service. We've made it that simple. As long as it pops up in the calendar, our system will recognize it, allowing a quick access to that third-party service when necessary from a HighFive room. And speaking of HighFive rooms, a new service that we've launched here recently is what's called HighFive Flex. So we recognize that while we have an offering, as you'll see on our website, of a variety of different room systems out there, we also recognize that in this pandemic, there's also some new situations. There's need for social distancing. There's needs for larger rooms. There's need to for the ability to host in a much unique or other kind of spaces. As I've been mentioning to some of the people I've been talking to recently, we're working with people who are using HighFive in ways they never thought of before. There's in fact a winery north of San Francisco that's doing on the hour wine tasting classes and wine sampling classes for audiences around the world from a studio overlooking a winery north of San Francisco. That's where HighFive Flex fits in. And so if you have PC peripheral devices that connect to a PC, we can easily add the HighFive Flex application so that you can easily join a HighFive meeting with all the simplicity we've been talking about up to now. Security. So security, of course, has been a big topic since the pandemic launched here in March. I shouldn't call it launched. We weren't ready for it. But security was a concern because a number of new participants in online meetings discovered that there was some nasty surprises with security. And in fact, a lot of people found their meetings interrupted by people who weren't invited to the meeting. Well, if they'd been using HighFive, they would have essentially been much more at ease, knowing that it's not to say that not everybody else is designing with security in mind, but ours was designed initially with security for the enterprise, for the company, in the sense that we have what's called a domain-based solution, where that's when you are signed up for a HighFive service, everybody in your organization is in a sense in the same group. The whole enterprise is whitelisted, which means that anybody from outside the organization has to go through a waiting room. Many of you may have noticed that today when you joined today's meeting, that there was a brief hold as you went through the meeting room and we gave you access to this event here today. That is a design, a security design that we had in mind when we launched HighFive. There is also some other security measures as well. So for instance, you can't record the meeting if you're not part of the organization. There will, by the way, be a recording of today's events with all the slides and all the comments. But again, if you're not part of the enterprise, not part of the organization, you're not able to get access to certain features for a security reason. And then I'll also mention about WebRTC. WebRTC is resting on the shoulders of some of the largest browser providers out there. It also forces you to upgrade these browsers on a regular basis. So you can be sure with WebRTC that you're getting not only a security model that actually is second to none in the industry, but it's not an afterthought. WebRTC was designed with security in mind. In fact, you cannot have an unencrypted WebRTC meeting. So you can always rest assured that the meeting always has the top security in mind. And let's see here, did I miss anything out there, Giles, in terms of security? No, I think I captured everything in sense of security being top of mind for both Orange and HighFive.
Thanks, Jim. And looking forward to taking any potential questions at the end of the meeting. I'll hand back to Julia.
Yeah, we might speak about GDPR, and probably some of the people attending this event might have some GDPR question, but I'd like it to them afterwards, and so then we can ask it to you, Jim. I think it's time for an announcement, because for some of you might have noticed something was going on with HighFive and Dialpad, and I will leave now the lead to both Joe. Welcome back. and Doc, if I'm correct, Dan O'Connell, to speak about this acquisition, should we say, this merge, this marriage going on.
Yeah, absolutely, Julien. Thank you very much. So just a little bit of context. As some of you may have seen the news. It certainly blew up in my LinkedIn profile, but we were very proud to announce that we were acquired by another Silicon Valley-based cloud communications company called Dialpad. Very similar Google heritage from a development perspective. Both founders actually started in the same office by a common venture capital firm who funded both of us back in the early days, about 8 or 9 years ago. And Dialpad has a UCaaS and a contact center stack, as well as Uber Conference audio conferencing stack. We were, we got together, had some discussions, many months ago. And then it was actually a marriage made in COVID, right, Dan? And we were able to go through a whole due diligence process. For the most part, other than one outdoor dinner that we had here in Half Moon Bay that Dan joined us for, the rest of all the due diligence and meetings were all done using video conferencing technology. And so I'm ecstatic to be part of a bigger family of a born in the cloud communication stack. And then, Dan, who's the CRO over at Dalpad, he was CEO of a company that was acquired by Dalpad, and it was instrumental in hearing his perspective on how they integrated the Talk IQ team and how he quickly became part of the Dalpad family. So Dan, over to you and to say a few words.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Yeah, and as Joe highlighted, we're just thrilled with this announcement and bringing HighFive on board. And it's really just a match made in heaven in terms of another business that's born in the cloud. We have a very much a shared vision of the future, specifically around video and everything that is happening in the world, both with in-person meetings and also mobile meetings. So as Joe highlighted, we've been in the UCaaS and the CCaaS space for the past 9 years. We think there are tremendous opportunities. HighFive is a way that we will expand our own video capabilities, both with in-person meetings in terms of in rooms and hardware, and then obviously as we think about the mobile opportunities. And it's also just another opportunity for us to expand our presence internationally, which is also something that we're just thrilled about. So a little bit more about us is, as I said, we've been in this for 9 years. We're backed by some of the best investors in Silicon Valley, like Andreessen Horowitz and also Google Ventures. And so thrilled to have the HighFive team join us, and the product is amazing. We are using it ourselves, obviously, and happy to share more. So again, we welcome everybody to the team.
Great, thanks, Dan. And back to you, Julien.
Yes, and actually probably during the Q&A session, we'll ask you what will it change for your future consumers, because I guess that they have some value to gain thanks to this union. So it's probably something that will be very interesting. Talking about consumers, we wanted to share a business case with everyone attending today to understand who are the users of HighFive here in Europe and what were their first feelings. And the good thing is, Orange is actually using it, and they've been using it for a while. And we wanted to have their feedback on how is it working? What are you doing with this tool? How come, a big telco like Orange didn't have his own tool, and why would you turn to such a tool? So I think the words now goes to Jean-Sébastien Berneron and Delphine Gilbert. For the ones who are joining us right now, Jean-Sébastien, you take care of the B2B sales management, and Delphine, you're the HR manager. And so therefore, I guess you need such a tool on a daily basis.
Yes, sure. A few words about the context, COVID and full containment. And we had to organize in a very short time, in 2 days, in fact, on working for all our employees, even shop sales advisors. So it was really a challenge. And following these decisions, we have to find a video conferencing tool to allow our salaries to work remotely in good conditions. We had already other tools available in Orange, but not enough simple to install, not enough flexible, and not enough easy to use. And that's why you have discovered HighFive. It was a really good answer to us.
Yes, exactly. I don't know if you can show the slide, the next slide, following the title I see there. Yes, exactly. That was the introduction was done by Delphine. So in fact, I confirm what Delphine just said. The HighFive promotion introduction was done at the really good time for us and the right period, of course, not only by our innovation team group based in Paris, of course. As I explained before, in fact, the agility and the flexibility of the solution combined with the security and the customization, because we are able to customize our home page with our logo and picture, of course, make this video conferencing mode as a real reference for us. So that's key, having such key facets in order to promote this one. If we can go to the next slide. Yes, in fact, we have many examples to share. And the first is in terms of day-to-day usage. We do all external meetings, in fact, and interaction through HighFive. That's quite important for us, typically to keep the focus and to keep the link with our customers, in fact. So the business interaction were based by using video, as we see before, and the screen share documents. That's quite key in order to move forward and to keep the business on. In fact, we do afterwards a survey with our customer base. It was end of May, beginning of June, and it was appointed that by using HighFive and all interaction we did, the customer were very satisfied, with more than 85% of customers satisfied. So typically, as example mentioned before by Jim, we synchronize directly with our Outlook every link with HighFive. So within a few seconds, you can send directly a meeting appointment to your customer and so on. It was really appreciated by them, of course. But it's not always this example. We have other examples. Delphine?
Yes, it was the same easily functions for our other interests for us. Despite the containment, we go on recruiting for Orange to answer to our business needs. So I decided to use HighFive because it's really easy to use solutions, and it was easy to organize interview meetings with our candidates with a very good sound quality. And it was easy for candidates to connect. And I mainly use the video function for this type of recruitment. Another interesting use, we use very often the solutions to organize our internal meetings as executive committee, team meeting, individual one-to-one meeting between our manager and between our employees. We use also the solutions because we organized every month a big open talk with all of our employees. So we were able to organize a HighFive meeting with 100 people who were able to connect in the same time. And for this meeting, it was very interesting to use video, of course, screen and document sharing, chat functions, and also moderator to be able to organize easily rules to be able to listen everybody and to be able to work with easy conditions. And another use I want to share with you tonight is a use for training, because we go on training our employees. So it was very interesting to use these tools with the same benefits as for meeting, and also with the recording functions. Really interesting for us. So it was really a good way to maintain the work in good conditions with HighFive in those contexts.
Exactly. So I think we come to the next slide. Yes. Regarding the case study, so as we said before, we deployed a solution around Belgium and Luxembourg, of course. So we can see there that after 10 days, 2 weeks, following the lockdown period, the starting lockdown period, we have a huge increase of the usage, of course, by each employees. In fact, more or less, we reach 1,500 employees, reaching now more or less 2K users, of course. But in fact, we interact on day-to-day basis, as Delphine said before. We do several meetings internally, externally, across the group too, because we have many relationships with Belgium. So this is one of the key assets, and the deployment of the solution was very key for us in order to improve our money from our work during this lockdown period till end of May, beginning of June, of course. If we go to the next slide, maybe on the yeah.
Yes, you would like to share about interest. As you have already, I think, understand. It was really a good answer for us to continue working with our employees, and the HighFive solution is really easy to use, very quickly, very simple, very flexible. So it was really easy, and all our employees adopt these solutions with any problems. And what it was important for us, the tools. HighFive tools allowed us to keep the link and proximity with our employees. And it was really important in this context of home working, massive home working. So it allows our employees to be not alone, to be not disconnected. And we keep really very, very short and very small link with our employees. And we discover also day-to-day efficiency of the tool because it was very secure tool without any problems. And so it was really, really easy. And we noticed the real level of performance and engagement of our employees who adopt this solution very quickly. And it was good work for everybody in internal in Orange inside, really, because I can share my experience with the inside customer Orange, like our employees. And so it was 100% approved by our employees.
Yes, and on top of that, as we discussed before, this is a multi-device support. So in fact, we can use it through the laptop or the PC, of course, but from my point of view, and I use it, of course, because I do mostly eight video calls per day to connect, of course, commercially and internally, of course. Based on that, I use sometimes the smartphone when I do a mobility and my tablet too. So it was quite key to have multi-support device. And the mobile app done by HighFive is really, really, really a key asset too. On top of that, as mentioned before by Delphine, the moderator functionality is key to allow us to organize some meeting managed with the right rules, because in fact, when we have many video conferencing, we know that there is a lot of noise sometimes and so on. So with the moderator functionality, that's quite key, that only the speakers that we do today can speak with the moderator, of course. And on top of that, if the Q&A, and we will see that with the demonstration afterwards for the Q&A, you have to ask directly to keep and to get in fact to have the Q&A on, and the question is behind. As a conclusion, in fact, and that's quite key for us, the video conferencing HighFive is fully approved on Belux ports and tested, of course, on a day-to-day basis, as we mentioned before. In fact, the key assets are there. Simplicity, of course, security, that's quite key in Luxembourg, but for everybody, knowing the period we have today. The speed, of course, this is quite impressive. The quality of service in terms of video, and you can see there, the video is perfect. And of course, we have a competitive pricing regarding other solution and other solution mentioned before. So we do a official commercial launch beginning of October with 2-month free trials, of course. Dedicated campaign will follow. Based on that, you don't have to wait. If you want to connect us and to have more details on that, do not hesitate to contact me via LinkedIn directly, and with my team, we will contact you just afterwards to explain you the main details. So that's why key. If we conclude with the next slide, I think, Julien, we are more or less next to the Q&A session. So here
exactly. Thank you very much, Orange Luxembourg, for sharing this experience, because I mean, like everyone, when we see this kind of presentation, our natural reflex is to say, okay, but does it work for real, and who uses it for real? And when you have a telco company that uses it for its own company, well, it's a first proof that it works well. We have a few questions already that have arrived here. First of all, I'd like to explain everyone that you can ask your question and you can raise your hand. So the great thing is, if you want to appear on this webinar and you want to ask your question, you can appear here with us. If you're too shy, you can just write it, and and that's a great thing about this tool. Most of the time, you just type it and you cannot share. And the great thing is we can all appear here. We actually have a first question from someone, and while the other ones are asking their questions, you can raise your hand if you feel like coming on stage with us. We have a question from Julie Leclerc. who ask us, and this is a question for Jim, how do you comply to the GDPR regulation on the Luxembourgish market? Obviously, as you may know, being a US-based solution, we have lots of compliance department in Luxembourg that will directly red flag you saying, hey, but where are they? And I guess the answer is quite easy, but I think it's very important to ask this question. Jim, you're the one who will take it.
It is a good question, Julien. In fact, Orange made me look very carefully at the GDPR needs in Luxembourg. And I'm happy to say that we are GDPR compliant. More interestingly for me, since I've been working on GDPR for the last years, I'm now transitioning everything into Dialpad. And so ultimately, the EU representative for Dialpad will be the one we'll point to. Currently, it's still HighFive, HighFive's representative in Brussels, EDPO, but we are GDPR compliant. The other question is the EU-US Privacy Shield, which covers us. But of course, now that we've had that judgment against it, what happens now is that there'll be a standard contract clause that will be sent out for European customers as we migrate our services over to Europe. We're currently operating out of Ireland, but we are putting careful thought actually into expanding our services. And I've been told by our leadership team to say this, we are looking for those big opportunities in certain geographies so that we can actually operate locally. My expectations is that I will be forced to do that anyway by, of course, new customers in Germany. But we are aware of some of the concerns of the Luxembourg customer base, but we're fully prepared to make sure that we adapt to anything that is necessary so that everyone feels secure in the Luxembourg market.
Okay, which means that in a second time, you will try to make sure that your tool will be PSF as well? Because in Luxembourg, we have a lot of financial industry established here, and which means this is something obviously very important for all those companies that need to be compliant toward the regulator. So it is something that you're working on right now, so that it might interest as well financial sector companies?
Yes, currently we don't have any financial customers in Luxembourg, but being aware that we probably will have interest from that marketplace, especially in Luxembourg, yes, we are focused on that. I'll also add that we also understand fully that having a data server in Luxembourg is also desirable for the financial community. So we're looking on how we can do that as well.
Okay, great. I've seen that in the chat there was someone who asked another question. It was answered on the chat by Joe, but there was a question about integrating SIP-based video phones.
It's actually
there was a question linked with the Cisco room, because we don't only talk about software here, we also talk about hardware. And when someone is equipped already, obviously doesn't want to invest again into something else. So what is your answer to this question?
I wanted to elaborate a little bit. There was also a specific question on Scopia, and I former Avaya, so I was actually there when we bought that company, Israeli-based company, Prem-based MCU, actually pretty impressive at the time. So the HighFive approaches interoperability in two ways. One is if you have a legacy video equipment installed, Polycom devices, Cisco devices, the common language to communicate, through a third party when you get out of proprietary protocols is something called SIP. And so we have a SIP connector, which allows us to provide a SIP address when you have a HighFive meeting, and then you can basically plug in that information and make it work that way. The other thing that we do that's very unique is if you get, we also recognize that you're not going to do HighFive meetings all the day long. Like if you have 10 hours of video conferences, you're going to have an Uber conference call, you're going to have a BlueJeans call, a WebEx call, or a Zoom call. And it allows us to utilize the HighFive hardware that's already in your rooms, and it'll support other meetings as well. And so there's two main ways to do that. One is through SIP, where we look like a SIP device to a Cisco WebEx call or to a Zoom call, for example, which are the non-WebRTC platforms. But we're also working to support other services natively. So there's a lot of work going into this. Obviously, we're going to be doing the first area of integration is going to be with Uber Conference's WebRTC stack, where you can now support a HighFive room will be able to have an Uber conference call natively, but Microsoft Teams actually uses the same stack as HighFive does, the same container, in fact. And then once Microsoft opens up that API, it'll be very easy for us to start a Microsoft Teams call and move it into a HighFive room. So I wanted to elaborate on that. If our specific legacy hardware solutions, we haven't tested Avaya Scopia specifically. I know the Avaya people quite well. If you want us to do some interop testing, we'd absolutely be happy to look into that. It should be possible. I mean, there shouldn't be any reason why we wouldn't be able to do that. And Jim is the one who always keeps me honest. But did I say anything incorrectly there, Jim?
No, you're 100% correct, Joe.
All right. Wonderful.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much for this answer. A bit technical for the non-technical people and probably not enough for the technical guys. So it was right in the in the middle. I do have a few other questions. One is probably for Orange, and someone's asked, hey, but what's the business model? How much do you charge per customer? How does it work? Because concretely speaking, most of the end user would like to know if it's a monthly based thing, if it's an MAU and so on. And it's probably more a question for Jean-Sébastien. Yeah. What's the model? Because if someone wants to try it first, but then to use it for real, how does it work?
Yeah, it works like this is a fee per active user. In fact, this is mostly a fee which is more or less 30% less expensive than a Zoom monthly fee, for example. We are talking about more or less 10 euro per user, active user per month, and you do all you want in terms of HighFive meetings, conference meeting, in fact, because there is no limitation in terms of numbers, of course, based on that. And so the activation with a two months trial for free, as we said, for the starting point for all companies, in fact. And of course, this is quite easy to activate because we just have to take the domain name of the company, for example, at orange.com. And with orange.com, all users mentioned with a professional address with that can be activated. And afterwards, on monthly basis, we are going to see the active users behind that. An active users is a person doing more than 10 minutes per month video conferencing. So in fact, there is no limitation on the top of that, but we have to pay this fee on monthly basis. I hope it's
okay. Great. Does what features that includes? Does it include the device we're using right now and also the one-to-one meeting?
This is typically what we launched. This is the software part with the accessibility, of course, of the service. And with this service, you have everything. You can see that you have the possibility to share your screen, to do your chat, and of course, to do the recording. The recording we mentioned before, GDPR and so on. So this is a full basis offer, including, as I said before, the customization, putting your logo and so your picture when you have the home page of the service. Afterwards, we are going to develop in the coming months the software, the hardware, approach. So we are going to do this in order to have a full offer, combining, of course, software, having people at home, and on the other side, having a dedicated meeting room, like I am here in the London meeting room in our headquarters, and we are going to have this kind of hardware to reach, in fact, the HighFive meeting rooms in this case. So we're going to do that afterwards.
Which means, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So I just wanted to add one thing. I think Jean-Sébastien has articulated that brilliantly. When we first started talking, of course, we had the world's best meeting room as a service solution, and we were looking at kitting out meeting rooms. The world changed somewhat, as I think all of us have articulated in this rollout, and we've now got what Jean-Sébastien described as being able to provide a company just with the software. And I think it was Joe that talked about now a hybrid workplace, which is what we're seeing as more and more meeting rooms are going to need to be video enabled. And we've got the opportunity to be able to either via Orange sell that equipment to a customer, or importantly, lease that equipment, as well as then providing the hardware and the software. So that's something I'm sure Jean-Sébastien and his sales team would love to the audience about.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. So to sum up, it means that you have a one-to-one, a one-to-many, a sum-to-many solution with the same exact software for everyone.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's quite practical. That's quite handy. Some more questions to go further. We work a lot with the for example, private banking and those sectors. I see that what you offer is fully encrypted, so it's 128 bytes encryption. Do you already have a customer using this to do intermediation in the financial sector? In the US, for example, not saying that for Luxembourg.
So this is actually one of the most fun topics. We got a big kick reading about this because end-to-end encryption is very difficult to do in a one-to-many scenario. It's actually, I would argue, impossible to do. What's encrypted is the communication between the client and our AWS servers, which happen to be hosted in Ireland for our European customers, right? That is encrypted. So we do have, I think where we've seen HighFives for where we require security is in the healthcare industry. Actually, our biggest customer is a healthcare provider who's seen incredible growth in their business, triaging possible COVID patients. So we have something called HIPAA compliance. And the state of California, I mean, when we talk about, GDPR and data sovereignty versus, how the US handles it, the state of California takes security and data sovereignty very, very seriously. In fact, we're going to be enabling, there's a legislation right now that's going to pass, which is like it's called a hippie version of GDPR. But so we have a number of customers who take their data very seriously that are HIPAA compliant specifically, where they make sure that the data is encrypted and that and it's actually more, the bigger problem isn't tapping into an existing call, because that's very difficult to do. The bigger problem is once we record this meeting, where's that data and who has access to that data? And so the use cases are very, very similar, whether it's HIPAA compliance, whether it's PCI compliance. I hadn't heard about the Luxembourg specific. I'm guessing the one that is it PCF, or there's a new 3-letter acronym I wasn't aware of.
Yes.
Yeah, and so every country takes data sovereignty different. While GDPR is fairly standard across Europe, data sovereignty is different across the different countries in Europe. So Germany, for example, takes it much more seriously than Italy does, for as an example. So that may change, but right now that's the case. So we're working with all the local governments and all the local compliance rules. And the other thing, I mean, I think Jim sort of alluded to this. This changes regularly. I mean, this is the advantage of being a part of Dialpad now. They have a significant compliance department and compliance lawyers who help. It's much more difficult to be compliant if you're a voice provider with data intercept requirements that we have with working with large carriers here in the US as well. So Dan, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that a little bit, but let's not let people focus too much on this end-to-end encryption. There's way more to it than that, and it's a lot more nuanced. And I think the best answer is we're happy to work with you based on your use case and based on your local government data compliancy issues, because it changes every day. But Dan, I don't know if you want to add on there.
Yeah, no, I think I would reiterate that stance of we can share more on or follow up with our security compliance and our take on HIPAA, GDPR. You can go view our privacy shield, and then to reiterate Joe's point on if people want additional clarity or a willingness to work, absolutely. That is something that's top of mind for us as we expand into new markets and want to work and be flexible with customers. I think that's something that we've demonstrated continually in kind of our past history as well.
Great. Since you're talking, then, I had a question for you. What's in it for the customers with this integration of HighFive within Dialpad? What's new? What's extra? What's coming up? If someone is already using your system, like the Orange team, they're using your system already. They're using HighFive already. What's coming up? What's coming next?
Yeah, so I think what's coming next, like some of the most interesting features for us are really about one is how do we continue to build on just the video experience? But I think when you think about the future of what happens with video, ultimately gets into what we call voice intelligence. So the startup that I was building previously was a speech recognition and NLP startup, which is a fancy way of saying if you use Alexa or Siri on your phones, it is baking a voice assistant into the phone line, and then it is baking essentially a Google search for your past conversation. So we have some really interesting and unique features on that front in terms of innovation, and it's about how do we do automated note-taking within a conference call? How do we identify and understand sentiment of conversations for different applications? How do we help people share these conversations or learn from them or review them? So there's a lot of interesting developments that we've taken as part of that in Dialpad. And then it's really about how do we bring those unique features that are clearly differentiated into the market, into the HighFive product and family.
Great. It was very clear. Thank you very much, Dan. Next question. Actually, someone just wrote us a new question. I don't know who will take that one. Considering Orange/HighFive collaboration, do you consider an integrated function of cell phone, voice on IP, and video conferencing, switching between different tools, which are in fact based on very similar tech look, a bit old-fashioned? But there is no integrated offer today to the knowledge of the person asking the question. Who would like to take that question?
I can speak generically, and I can't talk specifically about Orange, but the idea that the whole concept of starting a call from where you're at, so I could be driving to the office and I hit traffic, so I'm late for my video call. So I join on my phone. And I join with a regular phone number, right? Just PSTN voice only. And I literally walk into my conference room and say, hey, hang on, I'm gonna move that to my conference room. And then my meeting runs late and Giles wants that conference room. So he kicks me out and I say, okay, hang on a second. I'm gonna move the meeting back to my laptop now and go find another room. And then I go to another room and I move my meeting into that room. That's something that we've embedded, within, our platform from day one. Now, the concept of how do I integrate that into different use cases. One of the things that really excites me about the relationship with Dialpad, quite frankly, they have their fastest growing product category is contact center. Something that nobody does well is customer interaction over video. And so now if I can, think about any mobile device, I can have an integration over video where if I can start a call with a contact center agent, and sometimes I just want to see you. I want to see how you really feel, or you want to show me something, like insurance adjusters would be a great use case. The contact center agent can say, hey, let me send you a link. Click on this link. We all have these powerful little supercomputers on our hips right now that have great video capabilities. With a great network with Orange, I can now do video at any endpoint, and I can escalate the sentiment. I can measure the sentiment. I can escalate the level of interaction over video and into my contact center customer experience. So I think that's sort of what we're thinking of. And that's one of the big advantages of us joining forces with Dialpad and being a part of the Dialpad family. That doesn't answer the question specifically with Orange. I don't know if there's someone from Orange that would like to answer that. I would take that one on. But there's so much possibilities. There are so many possibilities here, right? And I'll pass it on to Jean-Sébastien.
Yeah, I confirm what Giuseppe just said. And I try to do that often. Last time I used my PC, my laptop, and I have to move, so I switch directly on my mobile phone. So at the handover it's direct. So typically is what you said, and we are going to promote these kind of key assets for us, of course.
Well, great. That was the last question. We have no more questions, and everybody was too shy to raise his hand, so we couldn't show technology here. But I think we answered everyone's question. I think it's time to thank everyone for being here with us today. All of you, the speakers, to share your experience and your knowledge about HighFive and generally speaking those tools. So thank you. I will thank the one I see right now. So Joe, Dan. Giles, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you to the Orange team for sharing their business case. we will not hesitate, obviously, to share with you guys who are attending the links with the Orange team if you want to profit to the offer and discover the platform on your own more than the way we did right now. And for the one who are interested, I guess they can meet you at ICT Spring directly, or So that's a good call to action. Come and meet the Orange team directly or write them an email. Thank you all very, very much for attending, and have a wonderful evening for the people based in Europe, and have a wonderful day for the Californian lucky persons. Have a nice evening. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.